Okay, so I'm going to try to demonstrate with the camera on to show you kind of how I do the, I guess it's called like scumbling, I don't know. I'm just applying the color or the value, I should speak. I'm used to doing colored pencil art, but I'm applying the color with a little bit of vine charcoal. Looking at the reference photo and just kind of trying to copy what I see. And it doesn't really matter how I apply it. This is a little gray color because it's a vine charcoal, so it's kind of going on a little grayer. And where I want the darkest values, I'll use the actual sticks. They come in different hardness. This one is, I think this one is the hard one. I have them over here in a little setup area. Sometimes I just grab them and not even knowing which one it is, whether it's hard. I can just tell by feeling it that it's harder, so I'll use it. And then if I need a softer one, I'll move on to the softer one. But I'm just kind of trying to copy what I see as far as where all the lines are and the shadows, the values. And it's pretty messy, I guess is the word. It's not like I'm trying to be like exact. I'm just trying to get like the areas where I see really dark. Sometimes I'll miss like a light area. I'll come back with my Tombow Mono Zero eraser and I'll just kind of like put in a little bit more of those light areas if I accidentally removed it. It's really easy to just kind of lay that back in and make sure I don't forget it. But it's just a combination of different densities of the different charcoal and trying to create the lines and the values where I see them. I'm not very good at talking and drawing, so I have to kind of pause to speak, because that makes sense. They kind of come from different sides of the brain, the creativity versus the speech. So sometimes you'll watch my recordings and you'll say, what did she say? Because I like used a completely wrong word maybe. And but to start with, I'm just kind of laying the values down in the area that I need them. I'll go back in with the stump, blending stump, to make it a little more softer and more realistic. I have multiple sizes of different stumps, but you can see how I just kind of go back over them like this to kind of, and in the background I really don't care. I just want it to be kind of abstract looking, kind of sketchy. I like the whole, to me, part of what's really cool about the charcoal is the ability to give it a real sketchy look. Not super photorealistic, but it's a fast method of capturing the subject. And when I see that like I need a little texture for something to be kind of like I'll press a little harder with this. If I see I need the texture of fabric, I can do that real easily with a little bit of just little speckle dot marks. Just kind of, basically I'm looking what I see on the photo and I'm trying to mimic it. My reference photo. And when you're doing a self-portrait, at least with my experience here today, because this is my first self-portrait that I've been willing to do, when you're doing a self-portrait, you have to realize that it's very important to draw what you see, because you want to change it. At least I want to change it. I'm like, I don't think I look like that, and I'll start like going back and overthinking it. I'm like, well, I have, my lips are different, or this is different, and I'll start making like little changes that don't need to be there. I'm also pulling in a white charcoal pencil for this drawing because I have, just because it's different with my light hair, and it just helps me a little bit. I don't know if I'm getting off of the paper or not. It helps me a little bit to add some contrast back in with a little bit of white charcoal. And just to give it a little bit more value, changing right and left. I think I'm getting off of the video area, so I'll move back over here and do some of this area. Sometimes I'll just grab pieces from where I was, like blend in that color there's an area here in my photo that's a lot lighter than this. So what I'll do is kind of get the background toned first, and then I'll go back in with my Tombow Mono Zero. Sometimes I use a different, I have a square, or it's more of a rectangle Tombow Mono Zero, and then I have the little one. This is the little circular end tip, and then I have one that is more of a, of course my stuff is like all over the place, but I have one that's more of a rectangular. They're really dirty and messy right now, but because it's all charcoal, I don't have to worry about messing up another area by accidentally getting dark on it. So I don't necessarily sand it really well before I use it like I do when I'm working with color pencils. But I can just kind of go back in and add a little bit more highlights, and leaving some of it in the background so that it kind of gives it that texture. And I like how easy the Tombow Mono Zero makes it for like just adding back in a little bit of texture. And just, you can press a little harder and get some of it up. And then I can kind of just go back over with a little bit of white. But it's very, I mean, this is very different than color pencils, because with color pencils, I'm literally like thinking about every single color and stroke, and oh, it's got to be exactly like the reference photo. But the cool thing is that with the charcoal is it's like, it's really freeing. It kind of gives you like the ability to just kind of go in and do what you want, and not worrying so much that, you know, it's going to be the wrong color, or it's going to be not smooth or soft in a certain area. It's just the looseness of it, and the like sketchy process of creating it, and so easy to correct something if you accidentally forget something, or a hair, or something's too dark or too light. It's really easy to go back over it and add that light back in. It's easy to take the white charcoal and add a highlight back in, or use the eraser. The Tombow Mono Zero is really fine, and so it keeps getting kind of messy on the end, and so I will flatten that with my fingers are really getting dirty too. And that's kind of fun too, because it's different than color pencil, where everything is very clean, and you know, you have to be really careful because you don't want one color to get onto another, which is also a lot of fun and challenging. But with the charcoal, it seems to be less challenging because I'm just sanding it off, so I get a little cleaner tip. It's less challenging because it just seems really easy to, I mean, I'm doing this from quite a far away. I'm usually a lot closer to my subject, but because I'm trying to record it, my phone's like, I'm literally reaching way over here to do this, and you can see it doesn't take, the effort is just not the same. It's easy to capture what I'm doing even from a distance with my arm, like stretched way out. It's not as like precise work as it is when you're working with colored pencils. So for a change, it's definitely something that makes it a lot of fun to loosen up, and that helped me a lot doing the Faber Castell sketchbook project that they sponsored at the sketchbook library in Chicago, because that helped me a lot to loosen up, because this process of loosening up was very hard for me to kind of go with, because I was so used to doing colored pencils that I felt that I couldn't be sloppy kinda, and this whole sloppy sketchy look is really the best way to get the look I'm trying to achieve. So I couldn't have probably done that if I hadn't have already practiced sketching, learning how to sketch and to look at things quickly and to capture the values, the light and the dark, without overthinking them. So that made it really nice. But this is just a process of when I'm not talking and trying to video at the same time, it goes even faster. It's just a process of sitting there and looking closely at the values on the reference photo and asking myself, you know, where do I see those? Where do I see the dark? Where do I see the light? And then using the smudge stick, either a clean side, or sometimes I want to use the dark side to get a little darker color, and just going back in and copying those same values that I see in the reference photo. And then if you copy, just like anything, if you copy what you see, your image is going to look, oops, I know I got off the area there. Your image is going to look like the reference photo. All it takes is looking at what you're drawing on your reference photo and you copying the values the tones. In this case, it's all about values, dark and light. It's all about where do I see a dark color? Where do I see light? And then copying it. It looks very sketchy when you first put it on. Not that kind of sketchy, but you know, like it looks very sketched when you first put it on, and rough, like the color here when I'm putting this, or the tone when I put this dark color down, this dark charcoal down. It looks really rough, like it looks like it, you know, would be not in the right place, or rough is the best word I can think of for what it is. And when you go back with the stump, you end up more of a scumbling or softening that shade there. And you can even use the side of a dirty one to capture the just lighter, a little bit darker areas, but that are not so precise. And this is the sweater again that I'm kind of just roughing in the sweater, the texture. And I'll go back in like I did over here with the darker, probably a little bit softer. I can even use the thick vine charcoal. It's a little bit more gray, and just put in a little softer speckly areas. It's really the overall look and feel that you're going for. And if you get those values right, the tones, where you have really dark and really light, if you start getting all those right, it'll look just like the reference photo. So it's just really messy process, but fun. Laying in the lines, and sometimes, you know, bigger areas, because I know this is going to be textured. I'll just kind of soften it in just to get something on the background of that area so it's not so white staring back at me. And then I'll go back in and do a little bit more details, texturing, adding in the fabric tones, putting the darker lines where they need to be, putting the hair shadows in properly. And obviously there will be more like streaks in the hair, like little individual hair strands. And like a lot of times I'll just fill the whole area in and then go back, because it's easier to use the Tombow Mono Zero eraser to pick up those bright areas again. And make sure and keep your Tombow Mono Zero sort of sharp, because if it's not, it'll scratch your paper. You don't want to do that. So keep it out. And then you can see how easy it is to just go back and add. And if I feel like if it's a little too dark, that's when I'll go back with the charcoal pencil, the white charcoal, and just kind of add in a few highlights here and there. And then you can still go back in. And once I get all the values laid down, that's when I go back and start really going in and smoothing and defining those lines, and so it's not so rough. But I'll work my way from top down, because if you don't work your way from the top down, you'll end up with a charcoal mess on the part up here that's already kind of somewhat finished. It's not really finished, because I'm going to go back over and darken the lips a little bit here and there. I want my lips a little darker, but I'll work that all the way down. But I try to do the majority of the messy, thick charcoal up top. And sometimes I will just take this brush, and it's like a Chinese painting brush. It's super, super soft, and I will just knock some of that off all the way. And it's really not going to hurt my drawing, because it's so soft, and it kind of tones the paper in the areas. Like on the hand there, it was too bright white anyway. Just kind of go over it and tone it a little bit with the whole thing. But I'm really enjoying the process with charcoal, and this is just a little glimpse inside my studio so you can see what I'm working on. I should be done with this drawing in probably an hour. It only takes a couple more hours, but I like to take frequent breaks and have coffee and see what's going on in my house. But anyway, this is just a little sneak peek of how I do the charcoal process.